have a really fascinating session lined up today.
We really do.
Usually when we dig into a source, we're looking at something specific, a new economic theory, a breakthrough in tech, maybe a historical event.
Something external, usually, something you can measure.
Exactly. But today, we're opening a file that claims to be the prerequisite for all of that. We're looking at a text called Rectification Within Itself, Unlearning to Become Whole Again by Sri Keshav.
And right off the bat, it's important to say what this text isn't.
Right.
Wow.
Because it doesn't feel like a standard book at all. It feels less like a manual and more like a mirror.
It really is a distinct piece of work, and that distinction is actually the very first thing the author clarifies. If you pick this up expecting a how-to guide or some kind of medical textbook or a 10 Steps to Happiness listicle, you're going to be very confused.
Yeah, I could find that.
No. Sri Keshav is very clear that he isn't writing as a guru on a pedestal or some academic expert with all the answers. He writes from a place of observation.
From what he calls still moments and bits of clarity.
Yes. And that framing, I think, is everything. It changes how you approach the material.
Which I found incredibly refreshing. It feels like an invitation rather than a lecture,
A shared inquiry.
The text explicitly says it acts as a mirror, designed to reflect the reader's inner self. So instead of telling you what to add to your life, more habits, more skills, more discipline, it seems to be showing you what's already there.
Exactly. It's centered on this concept of unlearning. And that is such a fascinating place to start because we live in an accumulation culture.
Completely. Everything is about more.
We spend our entire lives accumulating knowledge, accumulating degrees, accumulating status symbols, followers, you name it. But this deep dive is about the opposite.
It's about stripping things away.
To find what was there all along. It's not about construction, it's about excavation, digging down through the layers.
And the context for this excavation is, well, the text presents it as urgent. We really need to set the stage here, because the author presents this central paradox of the modern learner, especially when you look at the youth Gen Z, millennials, even the emerging generation Alpha.
Right. The paradox is that we are arguably the most connected, technologically advanced generation in the history of the species. We have access to everything.
We have the entire Library of Alexandria in our pockets.
We do. We have instant connection to anyone, anywhere in the world. And yet the text argues we are facing a profound crisis of consistency, a crisis of internal grounding.
We have all the tools.
But we don't have the foundation. We are, in a word, drifting.
And this brings us to one of the most striking concepts in this text, one that I really want us to unpack carefully.
Yeah.
The idea of the unarmed mind versus the conscious mind. Because when I hear unarmed, my mind immediately goes to, warfare. I think of a soldier without a rifle.
And in a way, it is a battle, but it's an internal one. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore how this unlearning, this turning inward, this process of rectification can address modern anxiety.
But it's bigger than just individual anxiety.
Oh, much bigger. It's about how those individual internal changes, what the author calls the silent revolution, can actually reshape parenting, leadership, and, well, civilization itself.
The huge scope. So let's get into it. Segment 1, the crisis of the unarmed mind.
Okay.
The author references some previous work titled A Confused Youth on Their Prime. Now, confused is a word we hear a lot when we talk about young people, but the text gets really specific here. What is the actual struggle being highlighted?
It's the struggle for consistency.
Yeah.
The text points out that young people today are constantly hunting for a comfort zone.
I can relate to that.
I think we all can. They think, okay, if I get this good job, I'll be safe. If I get this position, this amount of glory, this number of followers, then I'll finally settle down.
Then I'll have arrived.
Right. But the observation in the text is that even when they get it, they struggle to maintain continuity. They can't stay consistent because they lack internal persistence. The feeling of safety is fleeting.
That hits home. It's that classic destination addiction. The idea that I'll be happy when, but then you get there and the goalposts just move.
They always move because
Yeah.
the comfort they are seeking is external, but the turmoil is internal. And, you can't fix an internal storm with an external umbrella. It just doesn't work.
I love that. You can't fix an internal storm with an external umbrella.
And the text uses a really powerful agricultural analogy here to explain this deep confusion. Many teenagers, many young adults, they claim they don't understand life or they feel completely lost.
Sure. It's a common feeling.
It is. But the author asks a very blunt question. Have you planted the seed?
Planted the seed. What does that mean exactly?
He means, have you planted the seed of purpose, the seed of self-inquiry? Have you ever stopped to ask, Who am I really behind all the labels?
So you can't understand the fruit if you haven't even planted the seed.
Precisely. If you only focus on the external things, the studies, the marks, the career success, the text argues you're actually tripling your confusion. You're just adding layers of complex data to a mind that doesn't have a stable operating system.
That makes so much sense. It's like installing high-performance software on a computer that's riddled with viruses. It's just going to crash faster and harder.
That's a perfect way to put it. And this leads us directly to that unarmed metaphor. Why does the author call this generation unarmed?
Right.
It's not because they lack technology or access to information. They are unarmed because they have no defense against input. They have all these external tools, devices, apps, social media, but they lack the internal grounding to fight off mental tension, depression, anxiety.
So they have the shield of the internet, but no shield for their own mind. When a negative comment comes in or a scary news headline drops,
It goes straight to the core. There is no filter. There's no psychological muscle to sit with that discomfort, to observe it without being consumed by it.
and the statistics cited in the text on this are, they're absolutely staggering.
They are. The book mentions that over 80% of the world's population is affected by mental anxiety.
80%. Just pause on that for a second. That's not a fringe issue. That's not a minority. That's effectively everyone.
It's the vast majority. It's the baseline of the modern human experience. But here's the statistic that really flips the entire narrative of what we call development.
This is the part that got me.
In developed nations, the text specifically cites the US, Japan, and Sweden. That number goes over 90%. In India, for contrast, it's over 74%.
Wait, hold on. We usually associate developed nations with a better quality of life, better healthcare, higher GDP, better infrastructure. But you're saying the anxiety levels are higher?
Significantly higher. It suggests that economic development, if it's not paired with internal development, actually correlates with higher anxiety.
So comfort doesn't equal peace.
It seems not. In fact, the text implies that comfort often just removes the necessary distractions of day-to-day survival, leaving you completely alone with a chaotic mind. There's nowhere left to run.
That is a terrifying thought. And this provokes a very sharp, almost radical question from the author regarding global politics.
It's a real challenge to the status quo.
He asks, is it not the responsibility of major global organizations like NATO and BRICS to sit together and discuss this crisis?
It sounds wild at first, doesn't it? You think of NATO discussing missile defense systems and troop movements. You think of BRICS discussing currency reserves and trade routes.
Yeah, not global mental health.
But the author is making a fundamental point. He's saying, hey, your populations are mentally collapsing. If the minds of your citizens are broken, your borders and your currencies don't matter in the long run.
It's reframing mental health as a matter of national and even international security.
Exactly. Because if the mind collapses from within, the civilization collapses. It's an erosion from the inside out. And the root cause, according to Sri Keshav, is that anxiety isn't just a medical label we can slap a pill on.
We tend to treat it clinically, like a broken leg, which has its place, of course.
Of course. But he argues it's also an existential disconnect. The mind collapses because it reacts before it thinks. It has been trained over years to run from discomfort rather than learning how to work through it.
That reactivity is key. It's the unarmed mind flinching at every shadow because it hasn't been trained to hold its ground.
It's in constant fight or flight.
Which transitions us perfectly to the training ground itself. If we have this crisis of the mind, surely schools are where we should be fixing it, right? That's the logical place.
You would hope so. But according to Rectification Within Itself, schools are currently a huge part of the problem.
Okay, so this is segment 2, redefining education and awareness.
And the text offers a really heavy critique of modern education. It basically describes it as a system of information transfer.
Just uploading facts, memorizing theories for the exam, getting the marks.
Correct. We learn to design incredibly complex systems. We can build bridges, we can code software, we can model economies, but we are never taught how to steady our own minds.
So we're given the keys to a Ferrari, but no one ever taught us how to drive.
And so we just crash into the wall over and over, wondering why we feel so beat up.
The result being that young people graduate with a long list of qualifications, but with zero clarity. They know how to chase success, but they feel completely empty when they get it.
And this brings up a critical distinction the author makes, a shift in the fundamental question we ask young people. We are obsessed with the question, what will I become?
A doctor, an engineer, a CEO. The what?
Exactly. The system is built around that. But it completely ignores the much more important question. Who am I becoming?
Am I becoming an anxious person, a grounded person, a compassionate person?
Those are the questions that actually determine your quality of life, but they are nowhere in the curriculum.
It's like the difference between resume virtues and eulogy virtues.
That's a great way to put it. And the text has a stark warning here about intelligence without awareness.
What does that mean?
Intelligence is just a tool, like a knife. A knife is incredibly useful. You can slice bread with it, you can carve wood. But without awareness, without the steady hand that guides it responsibly, that same knife can cause immense harm.
So intelligence without awareness can just create more efficient ways to destroy the planet.
Or more complex, intricate ways to be miserable. It can build a fancier prison for the mind.
True worth, the author argues, comes from recognizing value internally, not from chasing external achievements to feel worthy.
It's a shift from validation seeking to self-recognition.
So let's get practical. If the author were to design a school curriculum, what would that look like? What would be different?
It's a beautiful vision, actually, and quite simple. Imagine schools where, right alongside math and science and history, they teach students how to observe their own thoughts without immediately judging them.
Just to watch the thought go by like a cloud.
Exactly. Teaching them how to take a conscious breath before reacting in anger or fear. Teaching them the skill of just sitting still long enough to make a clear choice, not an impulsive one.
That sounds almost revolutionary in its simplicity. Instead of just time out as a form of punishment, silence becomes a skill, a tool.
Exactly. The goal is fewer impulsive decisions, less internal noise, and more genuine insight. It's about building a mind that is an asset to the student, not a liability that keeps them awake at 3 in the morning.
But to get there, to build that asset, we have to talk about the machinery we're working with. The text has a fascinating section on the journey beyond body and mind.
Right.
And this gets a bit metaphysical maybe, but stay with us because it's actually really grounded in the human experience.
It is. It's very practical. We all have these two primary tools, the body and the mind. But the text argues we have a terrible relationship with both of them.
Let's start with the body.
Okay, the body. The text says we often treat the body like a machine. We push it, we demand performance, we fuel it poorly, or we just ignore it entirely until it breaks down and screams at us with pain or illness.
Sure.
But Sri Keshav argues that the body is the first doorway to awareness. It connects us to the elements of the universe. It's our anchor in the present moment.
I've heard that before. If you're stuck in your head, spiraling in thought,
Yeah.
the quickest way out is to just feel your feet on the floor.
Right. It grounds you immediately. It brings you back. And then there's the mind. And the text is pretty blunt in its description of the mind.
It calls it a prison that runs in loops.
I think everyone listening can probably relate to that. The mental replay button, the constant scenario planning for disasters that almost never happen.
The internal critic?
All of it.
Yeah.
And that's because the mind is rarely, if ever, given silence. It clings to fear and it holds on to old stories to justify its own existence, its own patterns.
Okay, so if the body is a doorway and the mind is a prison, what is rectification? How do we use the doorway and escape the prison?
Now, this is the crucial definition. Rectification, in this context, isn't about fixing those thoughts one by one. It's not about fighting your mind.
So it isn't like traditional therapy where you dig into the trauma behind every thought.
Not in that analytical sense, no. It's more fundamental. It involves seeing the body and the mind as tools for reflection rather than as the source of your identity.
So the idea is, you are not your anxiety. You are not your racing thoughts.
You are the one who is aware of them. The text calls this the quiet witness.
The quiet witness. I love that term. Can you explain that a bit more? It's a powerful idea.
Think of it like this. You're standing on the bank of a river. The river is your stream of consciousness, thoughts, feelings, sensations. Sometimes the water is muddy, sometimes it's flowing really fast, sometimes there are rapids.
And most of us just jump into the river.
And get swept away by it. We identify with the current. The quiet witness is the part of you that remains on the bank and simply says, oh, the river is fast today, or the water is a bit muddy. It observes the state of the river without getting wet.
And the text says clarity comes from this pause, from stepping onto the riverbank.
Yes. Clarity comes from pausing, not from thinking harder. You can't think your way out of a noisy mind. You have to step outside of it. And the great insight here is that most of our struggles are against illusions we carried, not the actual world itself.
We are fighting ghosts in our own heads.
Most of the time, yes. And when you finally realize there are ghosts, you can stop swinging your sword.
The war ends because you realize there was never an enemy to begin with.
Precisely.
So this brings us to the broader societal impact. If one person does this, it's personal growth. But what happens if everyone starts doing this? If everyone starts finding this quiet witness within themselves?
Well, that's what the text calls the silent revolution and the age of reawakening.
It's kind of a big concept.
It's a huge concept, and this is where the text zooms out to a grand historical context. The author compares our current moment to past eras. You know, we had the Renaissance, which was this explosion of art and culture.
An outward expression.
Exactly. Then we had the rise of science, the Enlightenment, which was a deep exploration of the outer world, of matter, of the laws of physics. The text argues we are now entering a new era, the age of reawakening.
Which is a return to the inner world, a final frontier, in a way. We've mapped the globe, we've mapped the stars, but the inner map is still mostly blank for most of us.
And the silent revolution is how we begin to fill in that map. And notice the word silent. This is key. It's not about loud protests in the streets. It's not about tearing down statues or shouting slogans or canceling people on social media.
It's not an external disruption.
No, it works in a completely different and maybe more powerful way. It starts with one person, alone in a room, choosing awareness over distraction. The text calls it marching inward.
Marching inward, I like that. So what's the mechanism? How does my inward march change the world?
The mechanism is vital here. When your perception shifts, your reality follows. And the text makes a really profound point here. A healed person has no interest in hate. An awakened mind doesn't seek to harm.
That is such a powerful statement. A healed person has no interest in hate. It implies that all conflict, all war, all division is just a symptom of collective internal brokenness.
That's exactly the implication. If you are whole, why would you want to destroy anything? Destruction comes from a sense of lack, of incompletion, and this forces us to completely redefine what we call progress.
We usually think of progress as, bigger buildings, faster internet, smarter AI.
But Sri Keshav argues it is not progress if technology grows, but humanity shrinks.
If our phones get smarter, but we get sadder and more anxious, that's not progress, that's a trap.
It's a very sophisticated trap. Real growth, the text suggests, is calm minds, compassionate choices, and valuing awareness over speed.
It's a quality over quantity argument.
Very much so. And the text also reframes mental health issues in this section. Instead of seeing them just as weaknesses to be hidden or medicated away, we should view them as signals.
Signals of what?
Signals of imbalance calling for harmony. Like a fever. A fever isn't the enemy, it's the body's intelligence trying to heal itself. Anxiety is the mind screaming that something is deeply out of alignment.
So if this silent revolution takes hold, we start to move toward what the author calls the conscious civilization. This is segment 5, and this is where we look at real systemic change.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to say, just sit still and be aware. But how does that fix the economy? How does that fix a broken political system?
It fixes it through the ripple effect. Internal rectification changes external structures because all structures are just made of people. Let's start with leadership.
Okay.
We currently have a model of leadership often based on dominance, charisma, or just plain intimidation. In a conscious civilization, leaders would guide by understanding, not by force.
The prerequisite for leading others becomes leading the self first.
Absolutely. If you can't govern your own temper, you probably shouldn't be governing a nation. If you are driven by deep-seated insecurity, your policies will inevitably be reactive and fear-based. But if a leader is grounded, their decisions come from a place of clarity.
And what about the economy? The text talks about a shift from greed and accumulation to contribution.
Right. Right now, our economy is often a zero-sum game of accumulation. How much can I get for myself? In a conscious civilization, the fundamental question shifts to, how much can I contribute? What is my impact?
Wealth becomes a tool, not a pedestal.
A tool for impact, not a pedestal for the ego. It's a shift from an economy of extraction to an economy of circulation.
And technology.
Yeah.
We talked earlier about the unarmed mind being so vulnerable to modern tech. How does that change?
This is crucial. We currently live in what's called an attention economy. The entire business model is to hijack your attention and sell it to the highest bidder. In a conscious civilization, technology moves from controlling your attention to serving your intention. AI would assist human flourishing without trying to replace human consciousness. Social media would be designed to connect without dividing. It would respect the user's mind rather than exploit its weaknesses.
It sounds almost utopian, but the argument is that it's the only logical step forward if we don't want to self-destruct. The text also mentions the environment.
Of course, it's about treating the earth as a partner, not as property to be consumed. If you truly see yourself as connected to everything, which is the natural result of that quiet witness state, then hurting the environment feels like hurting yourself.
You don't need laws to force you to care.
You care because the illusion of separation is gone.
Yeah, there's one specific area where this conscious civilization really begins, and it's not in the halls of power or in Silicon Valley. It's at the kitchen table. Segment 6 focuses on parenting.
This was one of the most profound sections of the text for me. It calls parenting the root of society, and it references a Vedic understanding that the child takes form even before birth, based on the parent's internal state.
Wow, that puts a lot of responsibility on the parents.
It does, but it's also incredibly empowering. It means the imprint happens very early, often before language is even understood, and the core principle here is mirroring.
Mirroring.
The idea that children reflect the parents' unfinished healing, their unresolved pattern.
Oof. So when your kid is acting out, the book is suggesting they might be acting out your unresolved stuff.
Often, yes. The text says children are excellent observers but very poor interpreters. They feel the anxiety in the house, even if it's unspoken, and they amplify it. They act it out.
That's a tough pill to swallow for a parent.
It is. But it leads to the next principle, which is presence over pressure. The text says it so clearly. Children need present parents, not flawless ones.
You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be there.
Fully there. Not there physically while you're mentally checking email. Not there while you're worrying about the mortgage. Just there. With them.
And discipline. How does that work?
Discipline in this model is based on clarity and explanation, not on fear and blind obedience. The goal isn't a compliant child, it's a conscious child.
Because if you teach a child to obey blindly,
You are training them to be a sheep, vulnerable to any authority figure. If you teach them to understand the why behind the rules, you are raising a future leader.
and the definition of success for a child also changes.
Completely. It's measured by their curiosity and their inner strength, not by their grades or their list of extracurriculars. The outcome the author describes is that emotional intelligence becomes the real inheritance you pass down.
Not money, not property.
A calm home is the first experience of peace a child ever has. If they don't find peace at home, the text argues, they will spend the rest of their lives desperately looking for it elsewhere, in bad relationships, in addiction, in working themselves to death.
That brings us to the core metaphor of the entire book, really. The final part of this journey. Segment 7. The eternal seed. We've alluded to this throughout, but let's define it clearly. What is the eternal seed?
The eternal seed is the consciousness, the pure awareness, the essence that exists within everyone. And the crucial point the author makes is this. It is not planted by your teachers or your parents or society. It has always been there.
So you don't need to go out and buy it. You don't need to earn it through good deeds.
You just need to uncover it. It's already inside you. But the text is also very realistic that this uncovering isn't usually a walk in the park.
No. It says growth rarely happens in comfort.
And this is where the text offers a very compassionate and I think helpful view of suffering. It says that pain, doubt, and fear are the soil and the rain that prepare the seed to sprout.
I really liked the image of darkness in this part. The text says darkness protects the delicate sprout before it's strong enough to break through the surface.
Exactly. So if you're in a dark place right now, maybe you're not dying. Maybe you're just germinating.
That's a beautiful reframe. That the darkness isn't the end. It's the necessary environment for the root to take hold.
And the problem, the author states, isn't a lack of direction in our lives. It's a fear of silence. We are terrified of the quiet because in the quiet, we have to face ourselves without distractions.
We fill every single second with noise, podcasts, music, TV, social media, so we don't have to hear the sound of that seed trying to crack open.
That's it exactly. But if we do sit in that silence, if we do this work of unlearning, we reach the final realization.
It is.
That rectification is realizing you aren't actually looking for success or happiness or peace. You are looking for alignment.
Alignment.
An alignment where the seeker, the one who is looking, and the sought, the thing you're looking for, are discovered to be the same thing.
You don't become more. You simply remember who you has always been.
That is the essence of it.
Wow. Okay, let's try to synthesize this.
Yeah.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today.
We certainly have.
We've gone from the crisis of the unarmed mind, this modern generation drowning in noise without any internal filter. We've looked at the education system that fails to teach awareness. We've walked through this idea of silent revolution of marching inward. And we've seen how that can transform everything from parenting to politics.
It's a journey from confusion to clarity, from the outside in to the inside out. But we have to reiterate the author's warning from the very beginning. This is slow, real work.
It's not a performance.
No, you don't do this to post about it on Instagram or to sound enlightened at a dinner party. You do it because at some level you realize your life depends on it.
So to you, the listener, right now, who might be feeling that anxiety we talked about or that pressure to be consistent and always feeling like you're failing at it, the author has a direct message for you.
The message is, you are doing better than you think. The very fact that you are aware of the struggle, that you feel the disconnect, means the process of waking up has already started.
So stop looking for the meaning outside of yourself.
And start tending to your own inner soil.
That is the takeaway. We spend so much time and energy trying to tend other people's gardens or trying to landscape the entire world while our own backyard is completely overgrown with weeds.
Precisely. And the only way the world actually gets better is if we each take responsibility for clearing our own small patch of land.
I want to leave everyone with a final thought, something to chew on that builds on what we've explored today. The text makes it very clear that civilization is fragile if it's not built on a foundation of inner awareness.
It does. It sees that as the bedrock.
So here's the provocation. If civilization falls when inner awareness weakens, then the most radical world-changing act you can take today isn't fighting the world. It's sitting still with yourself. We always think action is the answer. We think we need to do something to fix the problems out there. But what happened if you just stopped running from your own silence? What monster are you so afraid you'll find in there? And what if, instead of a monster, you found the only thing that can actually save you?
That is the question.
Thanks for diving deep with us.
See you next time.